right, folks, it is Monday night, and it is time for another live Q&A. And if you're new here, I answer a lot of questions about drones. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments right here, and we'll get to them. It is 4 o'clock now. So before I forget, next week, you guys are changing time, but we in Arizona do not change time. We're going to stay on the 4 o'clock schedule here, which means that we are going to be 4 o'clock Pacific time. So if you live on the East Coast, it's going to be 3 hours ahead. So you'll be at 7 o'clock. So East Coast, anywhere else, you'll be 2 hours ahead. What's going on?
Audio's fixed.
Okay. So
I don't know if they heard the first part of what you said.
okay, are we good?
Definitely good now.
All right. So I'm going to do that again. I don't know how much you heard, but next week, next weekend, you guys are changing time. We are not in Arizona, so we're going to keep the 4 o'clock time slot here in Arizona, but we're going to be moving technically to Pacific time. So 4 o'clock Pacific, 5 o'clock Mountain Time, 6 o'clock Central, and then 7 o'clock Eastern Time. So there's that. So don't forget, that starts next week. So a little bit, an hour later for most people, unless you live in Arizona. All right. So let's say hi to a couple people. All right. Thorl Inspired is back to be #1 comment. We have Hike and Fly, Richard Hooker is here, Curtis Warren, Rick's iView, Drone Eagle, Rick Hone, Mountain Man, Just Johnny 2012 after his media, Thumb Drone, we have Gruffalo Drone, Jim, we have Bob Rock, Northern Drone Guy, No ID, Duck Holiday 888, Retired Fire Chief, Papa Food Review, we have Scott Jordan, Jillian, our own Jillian from the community is here with the hammer. We have Ronnie Jr., Supreme Detailing Services, Embrace the Adventure. Catherine is here, Vincent, Atort, that's Anthony. Who else do we have? John, Sandy, Formula Film Photography. Anyways, a lot of folks. Thanks for joining us. Quick update on the building. We just got finished talking to the contractor, and it looks like we will be moving very soon. So more information on that. But at the end of next week, we're probably going to be shutting down for a couple days to perform the move. So yeah, we'll let you know. We'll definitely be busy moving things around starting next week already. We'll be finally packing everything else in here and starting the move. So exciting. And the drywall was all done. They passed inspection today. So mudding and painting starts this week, and it's going to finish up all the little things here and there the following week, and then we'll be ready to submit for final approval to the city. So fun. All right. Let's get started with the questions. No ID says, how do I get my ActiveTrack 360 to work on the DJI Mini 4 Pro? I've tried everything. So it's hard to see what you're looking at, but you may have to like draw your finger on the screen to select something to get it started. We have a free course. It's called a deep dive on the website on pilotinstitute.com. It's free. It's on that specific drone, the Mini 4 Pro, and I think we show how to do that in there. So I would recommend you head over there and take a look. It's towards the end of the course typically, but I would watch the entire course because it's got a lot of good tips. All right, next question is Thumb Drone says, do you have any pro tip for cinematic FPV indoor flying, especially for residential real estate and industrial factories? Pro tip, let me think about what things people may not think about for cinematic FPV. I mean, I don't know what equipment you have, but I would try to limit the amount of banking that you do in those footage. I think this is why when I look at footage like this, there's two different approaches. There is one where you can go decently fast and then do a lot of really smooth movement inside. Now, in a residence itself, it depends on how big the house is, but it might be difficult to move very smoothly inside. I think this is why a lot of people like to use things like the Avata, for example, or the Avata 2, because it has the ability to kind of stay horizon flat, if that makes sense, and then just kind of move around very smoothly. It's not fully FPV, but I think the end result becomes a bit more natural. I think the FPV look is really good when you go faster and you're really in a big building. So you're talking about industrial factories. I think that FPV look looks better in this case, where you can really kind of bank inside the building, kind of like if you were flying an airplane. So I hope that makes sense. Catherine says, if I get a second drone, do I need to register it? That's going to depend on whether you registered recreationally or under Part 107. So I'll go through both of these. If you fly recreationally, you've already registered the drone, a drone, and then you have a number that is applicable to all of your drones that are flown for recreational purposes. So in this case, I would say go to the FA drone zone. There is a section called the inventory. In the inventory, you're going to add this new drone and then put the same registration number on that drone as you did for your first drone, and then you're good to go. If you do this under Part 107, each drone has to be registered individually. So you need to start a new registration, register that specific drone, that specific serial number, and then you'll get a sticker, you'll get a registration number, and then you can put that on the drone. So I hope that makes sense. Daniel says, hello from Oregon. We have, in what way in my future could I make money with my Part 107, and what would I need? So that's a question we get all the time. There's a lot of different ways that you can make money with your Part 107 certificate, but it has to be something that you're good at, that you're interested in, that there are customers for near you. So it could be as simple, in quotation mark, as doing photography of buildings, of houses, or working with realtors. It could be doing mapping. It could be doing inspections. It could be buying a thermal drone and doing thermal inspection, and buying a LIDAR and doing mapping using LIDAR. There's a lot of different things. So, in what way can you make money? It depends on your level of skills and knowledge. And I would start there. I would start to understand yourself. How can you use your current skills with a drone to sell something of value to a customer? I hope that makes sense. Zahid says, hello from France. Why American startup do not produce the same drone as DJI, knowing that all new technology always starts in the USA? Well, all new technology does not always start in the United States. DJI was early into the game. They started creating drones. If you think about the Mavic as we know it, that form factor came really from DJI early on, and then they iterated on top of it. Why are they able to do this and not the United States? The United States has issues with supply of parts, creating parts in the United States, and not relying on the Chinese market. So there's a lot of reasons, interest, and seeing this early on as an industry that was going to grow quickly. I think a lot of companies that are in the business today started way after DJI. So now they have to catch up to DJI having 70% of the market, meaning 70% of the revenue coming into their pocket, and being able to reinvest it in research and development. Excuse me. Also, DJI having access to factories that can make those drones way more cheap than anyone in the United States. So there's a lot of different things. Vincent says, what does it mean from the community? Oh, that's Jillian. You're talking about Jillian. Jillian is our head of community. She's in charge of our own private community that we've created a year ago. and that has 60 some thousand people now in it. And she's in charge of that. So she's Jillian from the community. You can check it out if you're a student of ours in a paid course or a free course. You have access to the community, and it's community.pilotinstitute.com. Travis says, I hate the time change in general. How do we get Congress and state government to reconsider drone bans? Oh, that's two different questions. I thought you were going to say, how do we get Congress to pass no more time change? I hate time change too until I moved here, and I love not changing time. So I think that's a great thing. By the way, time change, there's a lot of issues with time change. It actually kills a lot of people every year. There's a resurgence of heart attacks on the day of time change. So definitely something that we should get rid of in the future. But you're talking about get Congress and state government to reconsider the drone ban. You have to make your voice heard. We will not beat this until we have a strong grassroots effort to go after the lobbyists that are pushing for these things. And so we need to make our voices heard about how this is going to hurt you. As a matter of fact, today is the last day that you can submit for your comment on the ANPRM, the Advanced Notice of Proposed Rulemaking, for the Department of Commerce that they put out a month ago. So make sure that you submit your comment. There's been a lot of comments. We're at 400 and some last time I checked. So I hope that a lot of people submit even more today. You have to let your voice heard. That's really how it's going to work. So, here we are. Do you have any more update on the proposed ANPRM DJI rulemaking? So there's two things here. The ANPRM that I just mentioned. Once they close out the comments, they're going to review the comments, and then potentially work on a notice of proposed rulemaking after that, which more than likely, I think it has to be open for comments. So then we'll see comments open for that. That's going to be more specific rules. Here, they're just asking questions. A notice of proposed rulemaking is a document that highlights what the Commerce Department, in this case, would be proposing for rules to happen. Then you'll have a chance, we'll have a better idea of what they have in mind, because I don't think right now we do. We can guess, but we don't. From here, in the NPRM, we will be able to leave our comments, and then at the end of that, there will be final ruling that comes out, and then we'll know. So that's kind of the latest on this. I don't know if you were talking about Section 1709 of the NDAA, the National Defense Act that passed at the end of 2024, where there's a mandate for a government agency to do testing on DJI and Autel drones. As far as that is concerned, nobody has picked up on the task, and we're hoping that somebody will. And so, yeah, there you have it. Anthony says people would say to change settings in transmission from auto to manual. Not sure if that's true. I would not. The problem when you switch from auto to manual is that you pick a specific frequency to send a signal from the controller to the drone itself. And when you do that, you run the chance of having that frequency jam for whatever reason, in which case the drone wouldn't be able to switch to another frequency. So I would not mess with that unless I knew for a fact that I wanted to use that frequency. But in most cases, no, leave it on auto. Steve says, any thoughts on the autopilot phone app for pre-flight planning? I didn't see anything in the community about it. I don't really have any thoughts, but personally, we use Aloft Air Control and Air Aware. We work with Aloft a lot. I know what they do for the community, so I like to support them. I'm not saying that the other one is not great, but yeah. Duck Holiday says, member of the community looking to get into mapping, heard that the shutter is required. I'm guessing you're saying mechanical shutter. Have any drone models or software recommendation? So the mechanical shutter is different than a digital shutter. The mechanical shutter for mapping is technically better because it allows for less distorted and sharper images when you fly, especially in low light conditions. So as far as drone models, there's a couple out there that are pretty good that have the mechanical shutter. Older models, the Phantom 4 Pro V2 was a workhorse, still is, quite frankly. So if you can find a cheap one of those, it's worked for years. You have the Mavic 2 Enterprise, Mavic 3 Enterprise, and then the newer one, which is the Matrice 4 Enterprise. They're all brothers, older brothers and younger brothers in the same lineage, if you want. Those are the ones that I would recommend at this stage. You can also look at Autel, the Evo. Well, actually, I'm not going to say that because I don't think it had a mechanical shutter. Okay, next. Whirlybird Ups says, I was told in Oatman, Arizona that the FAA said it was illegal to fly under the utility wires by fire department. Ever heard of that? Flew as they requested to get photos of the fire damage after getting fire department approval. It is not. There is no such law, so no. Steve says, do I need to create an IACRA account if I already have an FTN, a flight tracking number? I have Part 61 private pilot, but no flight review. No, you don't. You already have, if you have an FTN flight tracking number, that's what the IACRA account does. So you just need to log into IACRA and then submit your application in there. There's one IACRA per person. Next question, Steven Jones says, is VLOS still on? Visual line of sight, VLOS. I still see a lot of videos that they were not flying VLOS miles away. Yes, visual line of sight is still a requirement to operate a drone anywhere in the United States, whether it's for recreational purposes or Part 107, unless you have a waiver, which are still fairly rare. Catherine says, how do I find out if someone has more than one drone? Who do I contact? You can't. You cannot. The registration database for aircraft is not public knowledge. So, Robert Patterson says, is it still a gamble to buy a DJI drone because of the ban? There's no ban. Let's be clear. Potential proposed ban, but even future bans would or proposed ban would only ban future drone models, not current ones, at least for civilian people. So no, I would say if anything, it's time to buy a DJI drone now before somebody decides that they can't be on the shelves anymore. I'm getting ready to purchase an Air 3S, looking to do freelance work such as photography, real estate, and possibly project progress photos and videos for construction. Is this a good drone for that? Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, really nothing else to say. The Air 3S is a great drone. Purchased a Mavic 3 Pro 18 months ago, but now really need a 3E for mapping. Okay. What Pro camera settings can I apply to best mimic a mechanical shutter? You can't really mimic that. That's not how that works. So the mechanical shutter, what it does is, think about, you've seen digital SLR cameras where you have a mirror and then it kind of lifts up and then the sensor gets light and then it closes back down. That's it's a mechanical shutter. You hear it, it pops, right? There's a mechanical way to open the door, to let the light in, and then to close it. And the opposite of that is an electronic shutter, which would kind of capture the image, but it captures it in kind of rows like this. So you can't really mimic. The way that you would prevent the issues of not having a mechanical shutter would be to shoot at a faster shutter speed. That means that you have enough light to do this so that the shutter opens and closes very quickly, or captures the data very quickly. So it's still recommended to have a mechanical shutter, but there's not really making it up. I hope that makes sense. Is a cloud fog, or is fog a cloud? Same but different. So everything is a cloud. Fog is a cloud at low altitude. And if you disagree with me, that's straight from the Aviation Weather Handbook from the FAA. I know some people try to disagree with me with that, but fog is a cloud at low altitude, period. Or on the ground, I should say. Neil White says, I passed my Part 107 exam on January 27th. How long do I have to wait to receive my certificate in the mail? 90-ish days is typically what it takes to get that final certificate. Your temporary certificate is good for 120 days. Is there an alternative to drone deploy for mapping? Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few mapping capture. So I don't know if you're using drone deploy for capture, for processing the data, but yes, there are a lot of alternatives. Mapping Made Easy, one of them. There's a bunch of them that allow you to do this. And even depending on the drone you have, DJI has its own suite of software that you can use to capture data. Anthony says, is there any technology out there to keep drones from crashing into each other? There should be, okay. Some zones for surf break in Hawaii have so many drones out there, it's crazy. No, that's why you have visual line of sight, and that's all onto the pilot. So unless you have obstacle avoidance, but typically it's not going to react quick enough if somebody is coming towards you. Just got to keep an eye out, and you got to talk to the people that are flying. So go find them and then try to coordinate together. Or, yeah. BAM 1962 says, anyone else having issues with DJI Mini 4 still locking? I don't know what that means. Went to fly today in an area. I could go 200 feet, immediately RTH. You need to make sure that you are updated with your firmware. That's what I'm going to say. West Texas droning. Actually, I'm going to add a little bit to that. We had that issue. I flew last week. We flew inside of a hangar, literally along, even worse than that, alongside a big runway, but also right on the final of a shorter runway. So if we had flown that drone at 50 feet, it would have hit an aircraft. But we were indoors. But I forgot to update the drone before we left. And so when I got there, it was still on the old firmware that didn't allow you to fly there. So I had a full block. I updated the firmware, took about 10 minutes, and then I could fly easily inside the hangar. So yeah. West Texas Droning says, I have a DJI Mini 3. When I fly it with the big battery, it has remote ID. If the drone controller reports remote ID has stopped working, can I just slap an external RID module on it? Can I resume flying? Yeah, I mean, there's no reason why it should stop sending remote ID. Okay, so let me maybe ask additional question here. It depends if you're flying recreational. Well, okay. So if you're flying with a big battery, it means that the drone is over 250 grams. Regardless of flying recreationally or under Part 107, you need to have remote ID. So if it stops working for whatever reason, because you have the big battery, then yes, I guess technically you could put a remote ID module on it to be compliant, but it should not stop broadcasting if you have the big battery. If you put the small battery and it's not broadcasting remote ID, that's normal. That's by design, excuse me. And if you're flying recreationally, then you don't need to have remote ID with the small battery. If you're flying under Part 107, you would need to have a module. I know it gets confusing, but I hope I kind of touched on everything. West Texas Droning, I just said that. Drone Eagle says, any update on Part 108, and if it will be available to those with Part 107 or only for businesses in delivery industry. Nobody knows. There is no information on Part 108 other than it's coming. That's what we've been told. With the administration change, I know there's been a bit of a freeze on new regulation. So I don't know if the acting FAA administrator that we have now is good enough, aka is qualified to get over that freeze, because the freeze basically said that somebody in charge of the agency needs to review the regulation before it can go forward. This is a still supposed to be an NPRM, a notice of proposed rulemaking. So it's not final ruling at this stage. So I don't know if that has been delayed as well. It's kind of difficult. We kind of know that it's been delayed, but we also don't know what's in the actual rule. So I'm going to say at this stage, wait and see. I see a lot of people speculating on Part 108 like they know what's going on, to either sell a product or whatever it is. They don't know what's going on. Nobody knows unless you're with the FAA, and the FAA people are not talking about this. I can tell you they're not leaking information. So, yeah. So we'll have to wait and see at this stage until we have the NPRM, the Notice of Proposed Rulemaking. Jesta says, sorry if this question has come up. I passed my 107 on February 9th, almost a month. IACRA status shows only received, but there's no indication that they've accepted my application. Is this common? February 9th, let me see, what's today? Oh yeah, March 3rd. Yeah, no, that's not common. You should have at least a temporary certificate. So go back in there and see if there is it should say approved, and there should be a link to download the temporary certificate. If not, then it means something is not right, because yeah, it should take like less than a week for them to go through the application. If you need to, I would call the FAA certification branch and see what's going on. Is there a waiver for operations over people for single use or for blanket time/date? Some questions for category 2 drone, if that makes sense. So there are waivers to operate over people. Typically they're they can be either for a one-time use if you decide to make it very local specific, or you can ask for them for an extended period of time. Our waiver is good for a few years. I don't remember the exact time, but it's long. It's long. Category 2 drones. You said same question for category 2 drone. One, if your drone doesn't qualify to be Cat 1, 2, 3, or 4, and you want to operate over people, then you need to have a waiver. So once you go into the waiver route, it doesn't really matter if you're trying to get a category 2 drone or equivalent. Really, the FAA, the way they look at it for the waivers to fly over people is whether or not your drone is under 400 grams. If your drone is under 400 grams, they will give, I think it's 0.88 pounds if I remember correctly. No, that doesn't make sense. I take that back. 400 grams. You do the math, whatever. No, it might be actually. So, yeah. No, that's right. 0.88 pounds. That's right. If you have a drone that's less than 400 grams, they will give you a waiver if it has prop guards on it or a way to not lacerate folks around you. And if you have a light on top of it, a visual observer, and I think that's it. So if you have that, they'll give you a waiver, and then if you make a good case for yourself. If it's over 400 grams, you need everything that I just mentioned, plus a parachute that's approved under ASTM. There's not a whole lot of them for every model, so it's going to be fairly specific. But yes, you could get that drone approved that way. Okay? I hope that makes sense. Jillian says, nothing stresses me out more than having to do live math. Yeah, well, yeah. A pound is 500 grams-ish, roughly. It's half a kilo, which is 500 grams. So 400 grams, 0.88 pounds makes a lot of sense. And then Drone Guy said, do you have a course for flying over people? Yeah, we do have a course for submitting waivers. So yes, you could. We help with that. Has anyone figured out a way to enhance the RC2 to accept apps? Asking for a friend. I don't think so. I think so. The RC2, just like the other RC, are Android based. I'm sure if you knew something about jailbreaking, if that's a term for Android phones, you could probably try to get in there and install whatever apps you want. But as far as I know, no. But I'm sure somewhere it's possible. Everything is hackable, right? Follow-up question. Do you know if any of the governmental turbulence slashing through the FAA might be delaying application for Part 107 applications? I would not be surprised. I don't think we've heard the final of what's going on regarding letting go of FAA employees. So we'll wait. We've heard some rumors, but they're just rumors, so I'm not going to repeat them, of some departments that might close or be limited. So, yep. But yes, I would not be surprised if this leads into delayed application for Part 107. Minut says, I placed the Firehouse Tech light on my Mini 4, taking into account the CG. Have you noticed any slight sluggishness in turning at low forward speed? No, I've never noticed any difference once we put a light. The Mini 4, when you look at the thrust to weight ratio, it is as high as it is on the Matrice 30. The Mini 4 has a ton of extra power available. So thrust to weight ratio is incredible on these drones. So I would say probably not a whole lot of effect having a tiny little light on top of it. How long does it take for you to send a sticker with a drone license? A sticker with a drone license. We send registration sticker. I don't know if that's what you're talking about. If so, we work on them every day. So we ship them every single day. So when you send them to us, it should take, I don't know, a week for you to get it after the mail does its thing. But yeah. I think we reach all the questions. This is a first. Usually I have a bazillion of them in the pipeline. So, okay, if you have more questions, leave them in the comments. We're ready. I'm waiting. All right, let me see if I can read some more questions in here. Let's see. I get my waiver for Mini 4 Pro like 3 years. Yeah. Yep. So you can get waivers will definitely last for a while. Do you have any course? Yeah, we've reached. Oh yeah, for Android, jailbreaking is a feature. Okay, so I would say, going back to the previous question on the RC2, if you can find a tutorial to do that, then you should be able to add more. What's going on?
I think that's an Apple joke. As in, all of the features are already built.
Ah. Yeah, but apparently it's not, because that platform is closed. I guess I just get the joke that jailbreak is a feature. Yeah, it's not, because apparently the RC2 is still closed. Greg caught up with all the questions at the 30-minute mark. That's right, gets crumble. Pew! Where can I see the list of Cat 1 through Cat 4? That's going to be on what's called the DOC, the Declaration of Compliance website for the FAA. It's type DOC FAA list on Google. Guarantee you the top thing right there is going to be the link. There you can actually go through the whole list and type in. So be careful when you go on that website. Be careful, because there's two different approvals on the DOC website. There is one for remote ID, and then you'll see there's a column that says RID or OOP. OOP is operation over people. RID is remote ID. So a drone might be approved to have remote ID, meaning that it has remote ID in the drone. Very few drones are approved for OOP, operations over people. So last we checked, there was like less than a handful of drones that were approved to fly over people as a category 2 or 3. Most of these drones are actually approved via AVSS, which is a Canadian parachute manufacturer, and they have the ability to approve certain drones as long as it's equipped with that parachute. So that's how these drones end up being basically, approved to fly over people. So, all right, next. Okay, so now the questions are coming in. Any courses on ActiveDrone 44807, etc.? No, we have not. We talked about it for a while. The thing is, you know, a lot of these applications for 44807s are going to be very specific to your own operation. So I recommend doing a little bit of research, downloading 44807, seeing what's required, looking at part 137, which is how to submit an application to carry chemicals with a drone, and then follow all of that. It's time consuming for sure, but I don't know how we could necessarily do a course on all of that. Is it better to apply for a waiver on a computer or your phone? 100% using a computer. 100% using a computer. Dan says, I teach a new drone class in my junior college. How do I register the school's drone? Under Part 107, for sure. I mean, what you're doing is a Part 107 operation. So, is the DJI Air 3S truly the best drone on the market? In my opinion, dollar for features, quality, flight time, image quality, yes, I think it is the best value out there, for sure. Steve A says, for drone registered as recreational... Okay, hold on. What's going on here? For drone registered as recreational, not have a 3-year time period. I looked the other day and I saw mine when I did my Matrice 4 and it did not have a date column. So, drone registration is valid for 3 years. Remember, on the recreational side, you get one registration and then it's valid for all your drones. So from the day that you registered, 3 years later, you'll have to re-register again, but it applies to all your drones. Now, I'm impressed that you're flying a Matrice 4 for recreational purposes. But yeah, otherwise, absolutely. An airport, okay, it's moving now. Old Man Droning says, an airport near me has a runway that is 7,485 feet by 150. What's the largest commercial plane that could land here under normal circumstances, and the largest that could land here in an emergency? Large, quite frankly. 7,500 feet is quite a lot. I don't think a 747 type or 777 could land there. I think it's slightly too short, but a regional jet, 100%. I'm going to say probably an Airbus, like an A320, 99% sure they could land on that. I don't have the chart in front of me, but airports, the type of aircraft that lands at the airport is more than the length of the runway. So there are criteria about the strength of the runway itself. When they build runways, they build different layers and there's different standards. So it's all about the weight. It's all about the landing gear design. It's about the taxiway design. It's about what's available there for that specific aircraft. There's a lot of different things that come in there. But yeah, based on runway alone, fairly large aircraft. For example, we have a roughly the same size runway here in Prescott. We do get regional jets quite a bit, and in larger aircraft I've landed here as well. What does your drone business course cover? The drone business course is designed to help you from you have an idea and you want to create a business all the way to I'm ready to go and start the business. So I know it sounds very vague, but doing the research, creating a business plan, finding what your pricing is going to be, creating your logo, going over your competition, creating your financials, creating your bank account, all these things basically are covered in the course. So I'm kind of holding your hand through all of this. I have exercises that you have to follow to create your business plan. It's quite in depth. I'm getting ready to leap into the premium PI community. Awesome. Can you list the benefits for me again? Premium community is designed for folks that want to start their drone business primarily. We have a ton of content where we've interviewed industry professionals on how to do their business. I talked about kind of holding your hand through the process with the drone business course. You actually get the drone business course for free when you join the premium community. And we are creating even more content now where we go through these steps of creating a business account with you. We just recorded that a couple of days ago to actually, I go over, we have 2 employees here that are starting side businesses, and I go over their business plan with them, and then I explain to them, what's going on. We have the post-flight, which is the long version of the Friday news updates. On Friday, I do a 4 to 5 minute news update. Post-flight is where we sit down and we talk about these topics in more depth, where we give personal information. Quite frankly, personally, I would pay for premium community just for that. I think there's a ton of good information. We can't always be very vocal about what's in the news because I still want to talk about the news in a fairly neutral manner. But I do have opinions. So does Jason, who's in post-flight, and Ben. And we sit down and we kind of have a discussion about that. So that's another thing. On what?
Uncensored.
Uncensored, yeah, uncensored as well. Without bloopers, never bloopers. And then, like I said, I don't know, we have like 20 plus hours of content right now available on all different topics. We have one with Billy Kyle where he goes over and does a mission with one of our students who lives here in not very far from the area, and who came up, and then Billy spent time with him, basically helping him with his own photos. Okay, I don't know who tightened this, but it is tight. Okay, there you go. A little bit higher. So yeah, that's premium community. I think there's a ton of benefits. It's fairly cheap for what you get, and we're getting a lot of great feedback from students on that. Christian says, DJI Air 3, can you use the N3 goggles? Can the Air 3S? I don't have my cheat sheet. Every time I need my cheat sheet, I don't have it with me. I don't remember. I don't remember if the Air 3 is compatible with the N3 goggles. But I can tell you what you can do is you can go on our website. I think Jason might actually put a link to it. On our website, we have an article that we try to keep up to date with all the different things, and then it's in there. So you'll be able to see the compatibility of all the different goggles and be able to see them. I'll find the right height in a second here. There you go. All right. Loney says, man, the questions came back, with a vengeance. Holy crap. Is there any way to identify critical infrastructure? I was flying near a chemical business and did not know until the police showed up. So here's the trick. At the moment, each state can somewhat, I'm going to put somewhat in quotes, somewhat decide what is a critical infrastructure and then create rules that, even though they're preempted by federal laws, prevent people from flying a certain distance from critical infrastructures. In theory, the FAA has a list of critical infrastructures that you can find on the UAS facility map. And if it's not on there, then it's not a critical infrastructure. So I would say, Lonnie, I don't know where you live, but I would look at state regulation, see if it's defined anywhere in the state regulation, and then that's how you would be able to find out if it is. But my guess is that in your case, a chemical business, I don't know what that means, is not a critical infrastructure, and they just showed up and complained to the police, so the police did something. But yeah. Eagle Lens production. Oh, and then I'm going to add one more thing. I would check that there's no restrictions over that airspace-wise from the FAA. There might be, but chances are there's not. I'll give you an example. The Hoover Dam is a critical infrastructure, and it is placed on the FAA section, on the FAA chart. So you can't fly there, because it's a federal restriction. It's not a state restriction. So I'm sure it's a state restriction as well, but yeah. All right, next. Not that the craze, I don't know what the craze is, over Phantom drone, the craze. The craze over Phantom drone setting is behind us. Have you noticed an uptick of fact-backed incursion and violation in the airspace? Is there a repository of to find the statistics? not infractions necessarily or incursions. There is a list somewhere of drone sightings by pilots in the airspace. All you have to do is type FAA drone sighting list or database, and it will take you there. It's public, it's available. You have to do a few clicks, and then you'll get there. There's quite a few. If you look, are they all drone sightings? Not necessarily, but they're all reported drone sightings. That's what matters. Brian says, do you see a time when LIDAR technology will be available for under 5K, drone included, that can be used for simpler topography in typical city and rural environment? Yeah. Yes, I can. Absolutely. I mean, when you see the cost of LIDAR back in the days, a couple years ago, and what it is now, big difference. Also, keep in mind, like your iPhone now has a LIDAR sensor in it that it can use. And granted, it's not, amazing precision, but it's still technology that's in the drone. So I would say, yeah, absolutely. I think in the future, we'll be able to see those. Also, remember that like a lot of self-driving cars are using LIDAR technology, which means that the more the technology is being used in the more different sectors, the cheaper the technology becomes. Do you offer in-person drone mapping courses closest to North Carolina? Not at the moment. I don't know that this is something that we plan on doing, but we do have a course that's quite in depth where I don't think you need to have in-person classes for it necessarily. You can learn a lot from it by just watching the videos. Can I fly my aircraft over an active construction site for mapping purposes? You can, as long as you don't fly over people or people in moving vehicles. Any drone event scheduled for 2025 in New Jersey or the East Coast? There is this is specific to first responders, but Drone Responders has an event coming out in March this month on the East Coast. I think it's in Virginia, if I remember correctly. Other than that, none in New Jersey that I know, none on the East Coast necessarily that I know of. But I'm sure there are some events, but just none that I know at the moment. Ken says, will putting a light on top of my Mini 4 Pro interfere with the anti-collision sensor? No, not on top. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. I've been trying to find guidance regarding regulation where I can receive a waiver for drone operation in excess of 400 feet. Have you heard of such waivers? And do you know where I can find access? You can get a waiver to fly over 400 feet. I would go on the FAA website into the FAA drone zone, and then there is a document there. It's called a WSEG, W-S-E-G, and the WSEG is a PDF document that you can download for that specific waiver, and it tells you the questions that the FAA wants answers to in order to give you that waiver. So yes, it is possible. It's rare. I don't think the FAA gives a whole lot of these to fly over 400 feet. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure we have one in the pipeline right now that we just submitted in order to do that. So we'll see if we get it. But yeah. I have a Part 107-241 bundle, so I can purchase the program through your site as well. I don't know what you mean. If you have the bundle already, you're good to go to study. You can buy more courses from the website as well, if that's what you're asking. Yes. Can you fly through an abandoned railroad trestle bridge? Yep. I mean, unless there is a airspace restriction right at that spot. Yeah, absolutely. Ooh, what about Navy vessels? We just made a video about Navy vessels a week ago or so. So I would say when we're done here, head over to our page on YouTube. We posted a video. If you're in the course, we also put that in the video. So I would say, yep, there are some restrictions. The short of it is you cannot fly within 1,000 feet, 3,000 feet of a Navy vessel, and then 1,000 feet above Navy vessel. Wait, did I say that right?
3,000?
It's 3,000 horizontal? Yeah, 3,000 horizontal, 1,000 above. With the push of adding tower to critical infrastructure, would it be advantageous to join NATE? I don't know what NATE is. Or another communication infrastructure contractor association. Yeah, I don't see towers being added as critical infrastructures everywhere in the country. I mean, I don't see that happening, but we'll see. Joining an association, if they're going to be fighting for your rights, I would say, yeah, that's a good idea. But I'm not familiar with these, unfortunately. What are other rules for flying a drone at night other than having an anti-collision light that is visible from 3 statute miles? That's it, really. That's the only additional rule. You still need to follow all the other rules, but that's really the main one right there. Visual line of sight is going to be harder at night. Seeing objects nearby is going to be harder at night. So something to keep in mind. AGP Aerial Services says, for RTK, would you prefer DJI RTK3 or MLID RS2 with rover? Unfortunately, that's beyond my knowledge. I don't have enough expertise in here to give you a good answer. If you're part of our mapping, or if you're part of our community, what do you have something, Ethan?
Jared uses the MLID and he loves it.
Oh, he uses the MLID? Okay. Okay, well, here you go. Jared, our instructor, uses the MLID, and he says he loves it. So you have that. Have you had an SD card fail on you? Oh, yeah. Do you have any rule of thumb for how long you use them? How many uses and had one fail? Not a good experience. Yeah, SD cards fail. We don't retire our SD cards, but we were just talking about this today. We record all of this stuff that we do here in the studio. We record on SSDs, not SD cards, but SSDs. And SSDs over time, they just fail. So we're talking about maybe having a shelf life, and when they get to that age, we just retire them. So we're still trying to figure out what the issue exactly is, if it's our recorder or the SSD in itself. But as far as what do you do with SD cards, they are extremely reliable. They do fail, but they are extremely reliable. So it's up to you to decide how risk avert you want to be. If it's something that happens a whole lot, maybe you need to think about your handling of cards, but I'm assuming that you're not, rough or scratching them or keeping them out of their case for a long time. But obviously, the more exposed they are to the environment, the more they are likely to fail. I've had SD cards that I've put through the washing machine and they still work. So they are very, very resilient. Excuse me. So I would say if you're willing to take a bit more of a risk and have one fail every once in a while, then keep using them until they fail. Otherwise, you can set a plan. Every year, you just get a new set of cards. They're not super expensive, but yeah, that's what I would say. Or here's another trick, actually, that I should say. But maybe, so something that some people do, I think our friend Jared does that. He has an SD card for each flight. So you do a flight, you put the card in there, and then you land, change the battery, change the card, and then put a new one in. So what happens when you do this is that, one, if you crash on the second flight, you still have the data from the first flight. And if the SD card crashes on the second flight, then you still have the first flight. So maybe that's your answer right here. That might be a way to reduce risk easily. Are reservoir and dam considered critical infrastructure if they don't produce power? Like I said, you have to go and check what your state defines as a critical infrastructure if they do, and then what it says on a chart. If they don't produce power, I doubt that they are, but again, I don't know all the state regulation. What's going to happen for the BIS, or what will they be doing? I don't know what the BIS is. What's the BIS? Am I missing something? I don't know what the BIS is.
Bureau of Industry and Security.
That's probably not it.
The advanced proposed rulemaking talks about the BIS.
Oh, okay.
You talked about it in that video.
Did I?
Or Vic did.
Oh, Vic did. Okay. I don't remember, quite frankly. Sorry, I'm having a brain fart, or it was Vic's question. I don't remember. Okay. Christian says, do you have a class where I teach students how to determine the correct ND filter? We actually have a video on ND filters where I go through the science of ND filters, explaining ND filters, and which one to use and when. So I would say go to our YouTube page and then research ND filters. It's a great video. Jason?
BIS is the Department of Commerce.
That's the name for the Department of Commerce?
It's the Department of Commerce and DRM.
Oh, that's the department in the Department of Commerce that put out the okay. I remember now. Okay, so the BIS is the department in the Department of Commerce that is putting out that ANPRM. Okay. I talked about this earlier, Scott. I talked about what the latest is. The comment period ends tomorrow. Make sure you submit yours today. And after that, we don't know what's going to happen. Recently bought a new drone. What would be the best way to get rid of my old Phantom 4? I'm nervous of just throwing it out and it getting on the wrong hands when it registered it with the FAA. You need to unregister if you're not going to fly it again. And why are you throwing it out, I guess? Yeah, we'll take care of it. We'll put it on a shelf somewhere. If you want to send it to us, we'll pay for shipping. But yeah, send it over here. All right. I think it's we're reaching the end right here. We have a lot of work to do this week and next week. I'm going to be traveling to Texas tomorrow to go to a quick trade show. We'll be back on Thursday. I'm going with Jason. Rest of the team will be here. And then we've got some cool content in the pipeline. We have a move around the corner. So we're going to be busy for the month of March. That's for sure. So thanks for watching. We'll be back on Friday for news updates. Friday night, we have the happy hour in the community. And then next week, remember, we are going to be an hour later in most places. Unless you live in Arizona, we'll be at the exact same time, unless your state doesn't change time. Yeah, otherwise, we'll see you at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Mountain Time, and 4 p.m. West Coast Pacific Time. I got them all.
It's always 4 p.m. Arizona.
It's always 4 p.m. Arizona time. That's the beauty of it. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.